Hey everyone, welcome back to Therapist Uncorked. I'm your host, Carly, a therapist who has way too many thoughts and not nearly enough time. As always, anything discussed in this podcast is not formal therapy. We're strictly here for informational and entertainment purposes only. If you are struggling with your mental health, I encourage you to contact a local mental health provider, your local emergency services, or you can even text or call the 988 helpline for immediate crisis assistance. In today's episode, we'll be talking about what ADHD really entails. ADHD is something I'm super passionate about for many reasons, but one of which is because there are so many misconceptions. And I think it's super important to bring to light what ADHD actually is and what it can look like from the outside. Since ADHD is so multifaceted and there's so much to know about it, this episode will be pretty brief because there's really no way that I can cover everything in one episode. So take this all with a grain of salt. This is not all encompassing. It's just a really good place for us to start. So to start, what is ADHD? We hear about it all the time. We, used to hear about ADD, which is not a thing anymore, by the way, it's ADHD. But ADHD is just this term that we throw around all the time. So it actually is called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So it's something that is technically a disorder, and I think a lot of people think that it's sort of this this lack of control, or it's something where it's a choice, but it really is a neurobiological disorder. So a lot of it is actually driven by genetics. So there's not enough research to know the exact cause definitively, but it's primarily driven by genetics. So if you have ADHD, give a big shout out to your parents because it's their fault and you can bully them accordingly. So kind of from a clinical perspective, so for ADHD, there are three different what we call presentations, so three different types. First is the predominantly hyperactive or impulsive presentation, which is kind of what I think a lot of people picture when they think about ADHD. So, of course, this is a big generalization, but the hyperactive or impulsive presentation is usually what we'll see in little 8-year-old Timmy that can't sit still, can't quit blurting out during class, things like that. Kind of when you think of ADHD, you picture the hyperactive and impulsive presentation, or at least that's what my experience has been throughout my life. Is when I picture ADHD, that's what I picture. Probably another reason why I wasn't diagnosed until I was at the end of my high school career, because I thought, well, I can sit still. I don't blurt things out all the time. That probably means I don't have it. I never really thought about it. Well, that brings me to the next type or presentation of ADHD, which is the predominantly inattentive presentation. So that one is more of the trouble concentrating, your mind wanders. So it looks more, or it feels more internal, if that makes sense. So the hyperactive and impulsive presentation is more, you can kind of observe it from the outside looking in. The inattentive presentation, you usually keep more of it inside, so others aren't seeing it as much. So then that's a big reason why a lot of people, especially women, are not diagnosed, because we think, oh, it's just, I just can't focus, whatever, no big deal, right? Wrong, motherfuckers, okay? And of course, not focusing is not like, oh my God, I can't focus, I have ADHD. No, not always the case. But inattentive presentation is something that a lot of people, since you can't see it, you don't necessarily think it's that big of a deal. And then the third type of presentation is a combined presentation. So basically just hyperactive, impulsive, and inattentive all rolled up in one. So when we're talking ADHD, it's important to keep in mind there's, three different types. However, you can, for me, I am the predominantly inattentive presentation. That's what I've been diagnosed with. But then I do have, certain traits that could fit into the hyperactive or impulsive presentation. So just because you're diagnosed with something doesn't mean you don't necessarily meet criteria for some other things. So, all of that to say, I'm nerding out over criteria, but what's on paper in your medical chart isn't always a full picture of what's going on. So what I'm getting at here is it's really important to think about, all the things that are going on, to talk to your doctor about it, talk to your psychiatrist, your therapist, whatever it is, and just kind of figure out what's going on. And if you do know exactly what's going on, I love that for you. Great place to start. Actually, you probably didn't start there. You probably started at the beginning when you knew nothing about anything, but I digress. So from the outside, ADHD can look like not being able to sit still. It can be, a little kid running around all the time. Shit, it could be a fucking adult running around all the time. It can be sometimes risky behaviors that are impulsive, like that can include risky sexual behaviors. It can include substance use. It can include, I don't fucking know, stabbing a couch with a knife. I don't know, okay? Like, there are so many things that you can observe from the outside looking in. It can look like being lazy or unmotivated or super hyper or rude or emotional or being too much, having a big personality, being distracted, disorganized, not being able to follow through, looks like you don't care. I mean, there's so many things that ADHD can look like from the outside. So for a person that's, simply observing these things, it can probably look like, holy fuck, this person has no self-control, right? Like, why can't you just fucking sit down and do your homework? Why can't you just go to a meeting for an hour and not have to get up and go to the bathroom? There's so many different things that can be, to be quite honest, really fucking annoying for someone. I have ADHD, and being around certain people with ADHD that do these things can be annoying. And I'm someone that likes to think I'm pretty knowledgeable in this area. So it's not to say that if you feel frustrated or annoyed or whatever it is towards someone that's having these types of behaviors, it's not to say that, you're a bad person. We all have feelings and perceptions of things. It is important to kind of take a step back and realize that so many of these things that people with ADHD do or feel or say, whatever it is, they're probably beating themselves up a lot more about it than you ever could. So again, that's not to excuse disruptive, inappropriate, disrespectful behaviors, anything like that. This isn't a blanket permission slip to do whatever the fuck you want if you have ADHD. It's just simply to, provide some context, because the struggles that those of us with ADHD face on a daily basis can be a lot. Our brains are, like I've said in a previous episode, our brains are like little tornadoes. They're going all the time. It's a lot to deal with. But again, there's a difference between understanding and excusing. We can understand why the ADHD brain does XYZ, but that doesn't mean that it's okay. So that's something that I really talk about all the time, and I've had to work on myself, and I still have to work on in my personal life, is finding systems and different, tips and tricks to work with my ADHD brain, knowing, hey, it does these things that sometimes come off as rude or lazy or whatever it is, and I have to find ways to work with it. So that's kind of what this can look like from the outside. Now, what ADHD feels like from the inside. And again, this is just really brief. There's really no way for me to include everything in here. And of course, this is based on, my own experience and the relatively limited experiences that I've heard about from family, friends, clients, peers, colleagues, all those things. So this is, I'm just one person. But some things that I've noticed with me and my people, if you will, is ADHD feels like I can't start a task no matter how hard I try. It's not just go start. I fucking wish it was a go start and you'll do it. Like, I wish that was the case, because it's not a lack of motivation, like I've discussed in previous episodes about executive functioning. If you haven't listened to that, go listen. Super informative. Yes, I'm nerding out. I don't care. But it's not a character deficit. And I say that all the time. It's not a character deficit. It's just your brain doesn't work that way. I can't just start. I can't just focus. My brain, it can't. It's not that easy. So that's, a way that I feel a lot is, oh my God, I can't start these tasks. Or, oh my God, I'm talking too much. Everyone hates me, thinks I'm annoying. Kind of funny that I started a podcast because now I just talk and no one can tell me to be quiet. you just don't have to listen, I guess. So I don't know, do with that what you will. Another thing I often feel like internally is I have so many fucking feelings all the time, and I feel them so big. I have big feelings. I always have my whole life. I've always had really big feelings, good, bad, all the things. And sometimes I just feel like I'm fucking crazy because of it. And I'm a therapist, okay? I like to think I'm pretty well educated in the area of emotions and emotional regulation and all that. And I still feel like I'm crazy sometimes because of how big my feelings are and how many feelings I have. So imagine someone who has no context of what ADHD is. Maybe they haven't even been diagnosed. They don't even know what the fuck ADHD actually means. And they're feeling all these really big feelings, or, any of these other things that I've been talking about, and they don't know why. Oh my God, they probably feel fucking insane, right? I mean, I'm a person with a master's degree in counseling, psychology, and I know, I like to think a shitload about ADHD, and I still feel that way. So I just, I want to bring attention to that, because I think it's important to really think about just the amount of shame that goes into being a person with ADHD. It's a cycle. It's something that we experience every single day. Even if we're actively fighting against it, we feel shame about every fucking thing we do or don't do. It's a constant cycle of, I'm too much, or I'm not enough, or I did that wrong, or why can't I do that? Or this person does things this way, why can't I do it that way? Or does this person think this about me? Or why can I do, I don't fucking know. Why can't I write my paper before the day it's due? Why do I have to wait until 10 p.m. the day it's due and then I can do it, right? There's so much shame associated with it. And it's something that we have to actively, kind of stop that thought loop. We have to be very intentional about it, because it can be all consuming to sit here and just feel like shit all the time, which so many of us do, because we do think it's a character deficit, and it's just a lack of willpower. It's all those things, until we learn, no, it's not. It's not you. It's your brain. Again, understanding, but not excusing. But just important context to learn why the fuck you are the way you are. So some other things that I often experience internally because of my ADHD is a lack of focus. Like we said, I'm trying so hard to focus, but I just can't. I'm doing everything. I took my meds. I've had enough water. I ate enough food. I'm in an environment where it's quiet. I don't like to work from home because my brain gets too distracted. So I set myself up for success by going into the office, even if I have, a fully remote telehealth day. Sometimes I'll still go in to the office because, my brain works better that way. And so sometimes even then though, I'm in the office, all the boxes are checked and I still can't focus. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to power through it. And it's really fucking hard. It's tough, because we have to set ourselves up with so many different systems in order to just survive and make it through the day. And of course, some days are easier than others. I'm really just highlighting like some of the biggest things here. Some days I don't struggle with focus because I took my meds, I drink enough water, all the things, and I feel okay. And that's great. And there's other days where I feel like a fucking psycho and I just have to mask it, which is something that I'm sure anyone listening with ADHD understands, or really, everyone has to mask what they're experiencing sometimes. So it's not, just secluded to someone with ADHD. It's just something that we tend to have to do more often just to fit into general society. Because, while I love that there's so much movement and growth in the area of, acceptance and diversity and inclusion in the world, especially for people with neurodivergence. There's 504 plans or IEPs at schools to, kind of accommodate all these different things, or even in the workplace, we're learning and we're growing. However, we as neurodivergent people live in a world that was not made for us. It was not, the systems that are currently in place are not as inclusive as they should be, quote unquote, should be, for those of us with neurodivergence. So I'm not saying, the world needs to revolve around us. Not what I'm saying. Just we face an extra layer of struggles that a neurotypical person doesn't, just because that's kind of the nature of the beast in the world and society that we live in. So again, just want to hammer in the importance of working with what we've got, finding ways to make it work, finding systems or whatever it is to make it work. Because these, internal thoughts and feelings and just internal symptoms that we experience can be debilitating if we don't manage them or don't know how to manage them. That's another important thing too. Something I really, really struggle with is overstimulation. And I know that's a word that's becoming more popular. And honestly, I'm really glad that it is, because I'm glad that there's finally a name for what so many of us experience. And overstimulation, I know a lot of times we think about it in the sense of like sound, like, oh my God, there's too much going on. It's too loud. Like my brain just feels like it's going fucking crazy, So a lot of times we think of it in the context of sound, but you can also be overstimulated by a smell or the feeling of a fabric or, anything like that, even like a taste. Certain tastes can be overstimulating if something's too sour or too spicy, like overstimulation can come in any way, shape, or form, and it can be debilitating. I mean, there are times when I've been out with my husband or even my friends, whoever, and I've gotten so fucking overstimulated by even the temperature. If I'm hot, oh my God, girl's a bitch when she's too hot, okay? So, being overstimulated can really make you lose your shit. Like I said, I've been out with people before and I get overstimulated and it's like, it's a full stop for me. I need to just take a fucking break and like just kind of recoup myself, because it's all consuming, honestly, at least in my experience. And not always, sometimes I get overstimulated and I can power through it and we're good. But other times, I mean, it takes an intentional like reset for me to get back to normal, which can be a lot, both for, of course, the person experiencing the overstimulation, but then also the people that are around them. Like my husband, poor dude, he's a tank. We love him. He's such a nice boy. He's, had to deal with that with me. And I'm sure it's really fucking frustrating and annoying sometimes, because why are you freaking out because you're sweaty? Like, it sounds ridiculous. But for me in my brain, it's so... I can't think about anything else. I think about how sweaty I am, and then I'm hot, and so then like my clothes feel like they're too tight, and then I feel like I can't breathe because the collar of my shirt is a little bit sweaty, and so it's sticking to my skin on my neck, and then it feels like I'm choking. And it's not just being sweaty, it's all the other things that go along with it. And so of course that's just one example, and that's not the case for everyone. All of these things are not necessarily just like blanket statements of, hey, this is what we feel. Just things that I've noticed are pretty common. Another one I've noticed that is a pretty debilitating thing sometimes for those of us with ADHD is we will miss someone or think of someone. So like my best friend, listen, I love her. We live in different states, so we don't see each other often. So of course, technology, we can text each other, right? Wonderful, great. I can't tell you, I fucking think about her multiple times a week. And I'm like, okay, I should text her. Because I feel bad because I haven't, in, I don't know, probably fucking weeks, maybe months. And so I'm like, yep, I'll text her. And then, I get distracted, let's be honest here, because ADHD. So I get distracted and then completely just fucking forget to text her. And then it's, a week or two later and the same thing happens again. And so then I'm sitting there being like, holy fuck, my best friend probably thinks I'm a complete fucking asshole, because she's probably like, oh, well, Carly never texts me, so she probably doesn't care. Which if I were on the opposite end, I'd probably feel that way, right? But like learning that it's not a character deficit is something that's really allowed me and many people that I know and love to have some greater acceptance of themselves and those around them, because it's not this intentional thing. Like, I'm not texting you because I don't care about you or I don't think about you. I think about you 800 fucking times a minute, but my brain just can't turn that thinking into a text. Honestly, if someone can come up with turning my thoughts into actions without me having to do anything, like just teleporting my thoughts into someone else's head, hit me up. Like, contact me, because listen, I'll be a science experiment. I don't fucking care. Do you know how helpful that would be for me if someone could just like take my thoughts and just like turn them into actions? It could probably be really like not helpful in other ways too, because some of my thoughts should definitely stay inside. Not everyone needs to know what I'm thinking all the time. But I do think it would take a lot of like the mental stress off, because I wouldn't have to be consciously thinking about doing things all the time. So if you know how to do that, just let me know. I can't pay you because I'm on that therapist payroll, which does not cover science experiments. But anyway, I digress. So those are just some of my, kind of internal symptoms or experiences, whatever you want to call it. But then there's also some other symptoms of ADHD that are they're not the ones that we talk about. And they're things that a lot of these, if not, probably all of these, I've experienced personally. And I always thought it was, I'm doing something wrong. Or I know I've said the term character deficit like 8 times today, but like I used to think a lot of these things were just a character deficit. I thought I just wasn't doing things right, or I wasn't trying hard enough. And then once I learned a lot of these, common but usually unknown or not talked about symptoms, it took away a lot of that stigma and that shame. Didn't fix it, but it sure helped. So some of these symptoms look like something called decision fatigue, which is exactly what it sounds like. We just get so fucking exhausted by making a decision. So like deciding where to go out to eat sounds easy, right? I mean, everyone struggles with that sometimes, especially if you're a girl that you just crave everything, right? So I know like that's kind of a silly example, but like making decisions feels like such a big task, and it sounds stupid. It really does, because it's like, okay, just make a fucking decision, but it's debilitating sometimes. I was just talking to a client who has ADHD about this last week, and they seriously used the words debilitating. What did they say? A debilitating fear with making important decisions, or something like that. A debilitating struggle with making important decisions. That's what they said. And I thought that was the perfect way to describe decision fatigue, because it's just this all-consuming struggle with making a fucking decision, even if it's not that big of a deal. It feels like it. Another symptom, executive dysfunction, which we've talked about in a previous episode. Basically, like, our brains are just not getting enough of our dopamine, our feel-good chemical, to make us want to do shit. So it looks like we're just being lazy, when really we're experiencing issues with our executive functioning. So it looks like a lack of motivation. It looks like being lazy, but in reality, our brains are not working in a way that allows us to do things in the same way, at the same pace, at the same intensity as a person without ADHD. We also view, kind of in the same vein, we also view tasks as like a million different things. So like, silly example, but getting gas. I know I've talked about how much I fucking hate getting gas. So getting gas, most people would think, okay, it's just one task, right? Just go and get gas. All right. Here's how my brain breaks it down. Even if it's like this unconscious thing, I don't intentionally look at it this way, but I think this just provides a really good picture of what is actually going on in the mind of someone with ADHD. So to go get gas, all right, I have to get in my car, right? I have to notice I'm low on gas, which sometimes I just fucking don't. I then have to remember I'm low on gas if, I can't go to the gas station right away. Then I have to decide what gas station I'm going to go to. I have to decide when I'm going to go there. Am I going to go there right now? Am I going to go there after work today? If I am going to go after work today, then I have to remember to go there. Then I have to, physically go to the gas station. I have to turn off my car. I have to find my debit card. I have to push the little button to open the gas can in my car. I have to go choose what type of gas. I have to, pay whatever at the pump, because we're not going in. It's 2026. I'm not fucking going inside unless I have to, because I'm lazy. And that is actually me being lazy. Okay, that's not an ADHD thing. So I have to pay at the pump, right? Then I, like I said, choose the gas. Then I have to put the physical pump into my car. I have to wait for it to pump. I have to put my debit card back in my wallet. Then I have to take the pump out when it's done, put it away, close the gas can, get back in my car, start my car, and go. So I know that might sound dramatic. And honestly, like, if I were someone that didn't experience this, I would probably think it was dramatic, because Maybe it is, okay? But that's why it's so hard for me to go get the fucking gas, because it's 1,000 different tasks in one. And it just, every single task or every single step in an overall goal or an overall task feels like a task. So it's not just going to get gas. Yes, it is going to get gas plus 18 other things. So if that just kind of gives you some insight into like why we struggle so much, because our brain just doesn't view things in the same way. It doesn't conceptualize it in the way that a neurotypical brain would. So it makes everything feel like running a marathon, even if it's not that fucking serious, right? Let's see. Another thing that a lot of us with ADHD experience is something called time blindness. Pretty much what it sounds like. We have no fucking concept of time, or we have a very, very specific concept of time that we've had to adapt due to time blindness. So time blindness can look like I had a client talking about this yesterday. They went to a class that was at 10:45. In their brain, they were like, okay, so it's at 10, right? Because it has the number 10 in it. So then they got done with the class at about, I don't know, it started at 10:45, probably an hour. So they were done at 11:45, get home by like noon. Well, in their head, they thought it was like 11 o'clock, because in their brain, 10:45 means 10. So then an hour-long class means about 11. So they were out here thinking it's like fucking 11 a.m. when actually it's noon, just because their brain just couldn't comprehend what's actually happening. And then on the flip side, many people that have that time blindness, they kind of, as a way to try to combat it, flip to the other side of, okay, I'm going to be 30 minutes early to everything because I've been late before, or I don't want to be late or whatever. So there's kind of like I notice a lot of us are on one extreme or the other. Of course, that's not the case for everyone, but I've noticed that a lot, especially with time blindness. And also kind of in the same vein, struggling to have this kind of thought process of like things are out of sight, out of mind, where if, like I was sharing that example with my friend and texting her, if I don't see her in front of me, it's hard for me to remember like, okay, I have to text this friend, So it's kind of like that time blindness, if we just put it as like blindness in general, of like, if something's not right in front of me, it doesn't exist. Like, how babies, they have no concept of object permanence. So a baby's sitting on the floor, you're standing in front of them, you pull a blanket up in front of you, and then you run away really quick and drop the blanket. Okay, then baby sees, holy shit, there's no one there anymore. Oh my God, that person must be gone, right? That's kind of what the ADHD brain does with that out of sight, out of mind mentality. And it's not just with people. It's, if something's in the fridge, if it's in the way back of the fridge, many of us are just not going to fucking remember it's there. Even if it's something that we like really wanted or whatever, we probably just forget about it, or just don't notice it as much because we're just looking at what's right in front of us. Because our brain, back to memory issues that I've discussed in past episodes, our brain can't remember that many things. So we just have to focus on what's right in front of us. Otherwise, we just kind of lose our shit. Our brain just kind of like implodes because it's just too much. So that's, a couple other things that really show up a lot, something that I hear with a lot of clients, and I've experienced myself too. Another, and I kind of touched on this a little bit, but a lot of things that we experience as people with ADHD, it has to do with stimulation. So that overstimulation is definitely a thing. But another thing is a lot of issues with like food. A lot of binging or hyperfixations where we just get like fucking obsessed with foods and we'll eat them like every single day until one day it's just, that food is disgusting. I never want to eat that again. And then I won't touch it for like 6 months. So that's another, issue with food. Hyperfixations, wow, that was hard for me. Hyperfixations, Jesus, in general, are a wild thing in ADHD. So it's basically when you're just, you get so obsessed with something and it's all consuming and you can't stop thinking about it, and, you buy all the supplies to do this thing or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, just one day you're just done. And then it's like you just have this graveyard of all the things that you bought or all the things that you made or whatever it is for this hyperfixation. And then it's just gone. and done. And it's so wild because from the outside looking in, it's like, why does this person like get so obsessive? Like, it is weird. It's fucking weird. And it's hard to explain it as someone with ADHD because you just, I don't know, just one day I just randomly became obsessed with houseplants. Like, I don't fucking know. I just got obsessed and I had to have them all. I had to have it all because 1 wasn't enough, 2 wasn't enough. No, I have like 37 houseplants right now. Like, what the fuck? 37? Why? Literally why? Like, I don't understand. It makes no sense. I don't get it. But first of all, this hyperfixation has lasted like a year for me, which is actually crazy. That's probably the longest one I think I've ever experienced. So it's kind of mind-boggling for me. And maybe at this point, it's not a hyperfixation anymore. Maybe it's just like a hobby. I don't really know. But I mean, there's a lot worse things I could do. So if it is a hyperfixation hobby, whatever it is, I like it. And also, plants are very grounding, okay? So whatever. We'll talk about that a different time. But hyperfixations, super common in ADHD, super confusing for people that don't experience them because you're obsessed one day and you're completely forgot about it the next. So, that's something that is super, super common, but not a lot of people knew about it. I feel like more people know about it now, but not a lot of people knew about it for a long time. So it can look weird. A lot of these things, like I said earlier, from the outside looking in, they look weird and they look like we're just goofy ass people, which, I mean, we are. Everyone's just goofy and weird in their own way. I always say, we are all just a hot mess doing our best. We really are. Everyone's just fucking nuts, and myself included. We're all just fucking crazy, and we're just out here trying to navigate the shit show of a world we live in and just make it through the day. So, there's a lot more I could go into, but we're kind of getting a little long in this episode. So I'll pick up on this a different time. But just, what I encourage all of you to do that are listening is really just try to visualize what it would be like to be in the ADHD brain. And maybe some of you that are listening do have ADHD, and maybe a lot of this resonates with you, maybe some of it doesn't. But just having that, higher level of curiosity and empathy and just trying to understand that we are not trying to be lazy or annoying or hyper or whatever it is. We're not. We're really not. And sometimes, yeah, we're just fucking annoying and it's not ADHD. And sometimes we're just lazy and it's not ADHD. Okay, like, I'm not using this as a blanket excuse. However, just try to be nice. Just try to understand. Try to just have more empathy for yourself, for those around you. Because having, a neurodivergent brain is really hard sometimes. So just understanding it a little bit more, I think, can be really destigmatizing and really helpful and powerful overall. Thanks so much for listening. So excited. Love talking about ADHD. All right. Love you. Bye.